Last year, more firefighters around the country died from suicide than died from fighting fires. And between the stigma of mental health issues and the lack of access to specialized resources here in Oklahoma, we have to ask, who rescues the rescuers? When the smoke rises, when the car crashes, when the rescue is needed, they are there. Steve Lumry was one who volunteered to serve.
Used to, when you came in the fire service, it was all about sacrifice, and you just pretty much knew that you were probably going to get injured, could potentially be disabled, or even, be killed in the line of duty.
Lumry retired from the fire service after 3 decades. He now heads up the Oklahoma State Firefighters Association and knows all too well the physical and emotional stress every firefighter faces.
Don't typically like to talk about them, but there's always, matter of fact, I was talking to somebody the other day, relaying a situation that when I was a fairly new firefighter, that it didn't take much for me to flash back to that point and think about it, and I try to make sure I stay awake long enough I don't dream about it.
Each ride leaves its mark, some good, some bad. And being a firefighter doesn't provide your brain any special protection from repeated exposure to traumatic events.
As you go through your career, things kind of build up, and some people reach the breaking point, what I call an emotional injury.
For more than 20 years, Teddy Wilson has served as chaplain for the Oklahoma City Fire Department.
And it's very painful for the negative stuff, the hurtful things, the sights that you can't unsee, the smells you can't unsmell. But once you process it properly, then you can deal with it. We deal with post-traumatic stress every day.
Chaplain Wilson says the biggest challenge is getting firefighters to ask for help, especially those times when their best just doesn't seem enough.
Yeah, we call it coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and all you do is chase your tail.
Oklahoma City has led the way in mental health care for its firefighters. Its roots, like so many in this city, can be traced back to the Murrah bombing. But
most cities do not have an employees assistance program. Many towns don't even have a mental health professional.
And Wilson says even when counselors are around, there's a severe lack of professionals with the specialized training needed to help firefighters and first responders. It could be years before symptoms of the exposure to traumatic events begin to show. You see, while in the firehouse, firefighters have an outlet to work through these emotional experiences.
You may not lay your feelings on the table, but you can express it and get it out in a way that, the guys around you can help you deal with.
Once retired, that support can fade. But Lumry says it is still just a call away to the firehouse, to the association, or even to larger departments like Oklahoma City.
All suicides are preventable if we get to them early enough.
Reaching out for mental health assets or help is just like getting out of the fire that you're trapped in. Let's bust the door open and let's get you out of there, because there's help on the other side of the wall. We just got to get you out of there. We got to know where you are.
Here are some of the signs that you might notice if you or a loved one is experiencing post-traumatic stress. Displaced anger. Lumry says a common reaction is getting angrier than you should at minor events, or depression and withdrawal, or finding excuses to avoid going out with friends or family. And Chaplain Wilson says another concern is self-medicating, whether it be drinking, drugs, or even gambling. Now, if the past is any indicator, there are probably a couple of firefighters out there right now who are wondering if it's worth it to keep going. Help is available. We put more information about how you can get to that help on our website. Just go to OKTFox.com. Phil Cross, Fox 25 News. As he wrapped up his final report to the commission as head of the OSBI, Stan Florence was asked a question.
In our report, it indicates we're still running about 65 vacant positions. Is that primarily due to budget, lost revenues, or budget that we're having to maintain that level?
Florence indicated only about 30 of the 65 empty slots at the state's top investigative agency were frozen due to budget conditions from the state's recent years of financial crisis. However, records obtained by Fox 25 show that Florence approved more than $80,000 worth of salary increases and promotions to top-level employees in the final weeks or even days before the submission of his letter of resignation.
Sir, I had a question about some of the raises that you've kind of put forward during the last few days.
that appropriate during this time? In a memo highlighting more than $40,000 worth of raises to 2 attorneys, Florence said the attorney's workload had nearly doubled. That memo detailed the promotion of the general counsel to an assistant director position while keeping him as the agency's lead attorney. Another raise went to the public information officer after she had announced her resignation. Documents provided by the OSBI showed some of the larger raises were signed off on by the governor's public safety cabinet secretary. An executive order issued by the governor in 2015 required that oversight. For his part, Florence will likely receive a reduction in pay as he moves from director to his previous position of special agent in charge with a salary of $85,000 a year. The OSBI Commission also reviewed the report prepared by the Attorney General's office regarding complaints by the employees about Florence's administration. Commissioners were briefed by Attorney General Mike Hunter, who had also paid a visit to Florence just days before he submitted his resignation.
I think all involved here made good decisions, again, based on what's in the best interest of the agency in the state.
For now, commissioners approved former FBI Special Agent in Charge and former DPS Commissioner Bob Ricks to head up the agency until a permanent director can be found. Phil Cross, Fox 25 News. A lot of times when we do stories on sensitive subjects, we let you know you may not want to let your kids in the room. However, this is a story that covers a troubling subject, and it's part of a conversation you should be having with your kids. We're talking about hazing, and all too often it crosses the line from child's play to child rape. The 1990s. CD players, boy bands, floppy disks, and a time when Comic Sans was an acceptable font choice. As the internet age came of age, it was also the time when a darker side of school life began to take on a life of its own. Here's Dr. Susan Lipkins, a psychologist and author of Preventing Hazing.
It actually started in the 1990s, and that it seemed to be getting worse and worse. And as I've tracked it and written the book, I have found that sodomy on high school teens is like rampant throughout the country, and it's becoming more and more acceptable.
According to a 4-year analysis by the Associated Press released last year, there were 17,000 reported cases of sex assaults by students in grades K through 12. Hazing or initiation rituals have been around for decades. However, each new generation wants to one-up the last, leading to increased violence and sexualization.
They're looking to humiliate you as quickly as possible, and on men's teams particularly, turning a male into a female by penetration is the quickest way to make them feel like they're the lowest level and to maintain that power.
Dr. Lipkin's blueprint of hazing shows how a student begins as a victim. The following year, they are the bystanders until they become the perpetrator.
And it's true. It's not an isolated incident. It is not 3 bad eggs. This is a culture. And if you see hazing on a football team, you should go look for it on the basketball team and the wrestling team and the swimming team and the lacrosse team and the girls team. Don't think that it's isolated to one set of kids.
Forced sexualized encounters are not hazing. At best, they fit the legal definition of sexual assault. At worst, rape. And talking about it or even acknowledging the violation is difficult, especially for teen boys, says Travis Humphrey, the executive director of Bethesda, a Norman-based organization dedicated to treating childhood sexual abuse victims.
It can be really hard to talk about and even accept sometimes that it's happened, or accept that it's affecting your life even.
Humphrey says untreated trauma like that caused by unreported or unaddressed sexual assaults can last a lifetime.
There's a lot of hope for those victims who have suffered any form of sexual abuse, sexual assault, that you can recover, you can heal, and it doesn't have to define the rest of your life.
But how can you help or even know if a child is a victim if they don't say something? It isn't always easy.
Really what you're looking for are dramatic changes in behavior.
Humphrey says these changes could include eating habits, sleeping schedules, mood, academic performance, or even a child that was once very engaged in sports and excited about making the team who suddenly shows a disinterest in even going to practice.
It's not your fault. And that is pretty easy to say, but boy, when you've gone through child sexual abuse, there's times when it feels like it's your fault, but it's not.
Whose fault is it? It isn't just the perpetrator, says Dr. Lipkins. It is everyone who accepts the status quo. She believes in radical intervention.
They get rid of a coach, that doesn't matter, there's a new coach. They get rid of 3 kids, that doesn't matter, there's 3 new kids. You get rid of the team, that matters.
And until there are major enforced punishments backed up by coaches, administrators, and the community, sexualized violent hazing will continue.
This sexualized hazing is across the United States, and parents and teachers, superintendents and coaches need to recognize it and stop pretending it's not there.
If you are watching with your child, now's a good time to have a conversation about all this. It can start even before your kids get into sports. Bethesda teaches parents and children how to be empowered to speak out. Now, if you'd like to learn more, go to our website, OKCFox.com. For more than a quarter of a century,
we've been fooled.
Richie Ingram has been fixing tractors.
Started out, everything was manual, pretty simple, down to earth, and now they've changed to so much electronic stuff, and the technology is just unreal what they've got nowadays.
If you aren't up to date on life on a modern farm, you may not realize how high-tech some of these big green machines have become. It is supposed to make planting and harvesting easier and increase yield. But when they break down, getting back to work isn't so simple.
It's not like just get it done right within an hour or so. Now you may wait days if it's an electronic part that you have to order or something like that, or they have to get with the dealer has to get with the main manufacturer to find out what's going on.
And when it comes to farming, a lost day during the harvest could result in losing an entire crop.
The crops now, the margin of profit is so slim that it don't take much and you're in the hole already.
Something as simple as a blown fuse can sideline a tractor. Even if the fuse is replaced, it can still require the dealer or manufacturer to plug in a computer to reset the system. And that computer isn't available for farmers or regular repair shops to buy.
Yeah, we'd buy it. I mean, it probably wouldn't matter too much what it costs. I mean, it's one of the deals that you have to have it to stay in business.
Well, you may think that if you buy something, you have the right to say how and who fixes it. For dealers and manufacturers, it's an issue of safety.
The ability to repair it is one thing. The ability to modify is different.
Kyle Kennedy is the vice president of Livingston Machinery in Chickasha and part of the National Equipment Dealers Association.
We've seen more changes in the last 5 years than we've seen in a long time. With technology every year advancing, it takes more and more computers, more and more software to make these tractors operate every year.
Livingston hasn't dealt much with the frustrations felt elsewhere over the right to repair, due in large part to their 24/7 service offered to all customers. But dealers often find themselves in the middle, knowing a balance has to be struck between quick repairs and safety.
Bypassing any safety feature would be the biggest safety concern we have.
At the extreme, some right to repair laws could allow overriding safety shutdowns, which could result in death if a tractor's computer doesn't remember to stop. But the Dealers and Manufacturers Associations have offered a compromise solution to right to repair. That compromise would allow tractor owners to diagnose their own equipment and have more options when it comes to doing their own repairs, but wouldn't allow them to override safety or emission features.
We know that customers' downtime is crucial. So anytime that they're operating in the field, seconds matter. Hours matter, days matter on getting a crop out of the field.
However, some farmers aren't waiting for the changes to be implemented, and instead are purchasing Russian-based software to hack their tractor's computer system. The hack software can cost up to $20,000 itself, but the bigger loss to equipment dealers and manufacturers could come from the past.
I've seen a lot of them get rid of the newer stuff and go back to the older stuff.
Ingram says farmers are increasingly returning to classic tractors that have few electronics. While some of these old workhorses have been showpieces, the demand for a tractor without the bells and whistles is growing as farmers revolt against technological controls in favor of the equipment that worked as hard as they did. Phil Cross, Fox 25 News.